Hi, welcome to This Week in Ames. I'm Susan Guiazda. On today's show, we'll check in and learn a little bit more about geographic information systems. So my guest today is Ben McConville, the GIS coordinator for the City of Ames. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So GIS, its abbreviation, is kind of a well-known term, but not everybody is familiar with what GIS is. Tell me a little bit about GIS and how somebody gets into this line of work.
Well, essentially, geographic information systems are a computerized system that connects databases and real-world features, mappable features, so that we can analyze and track them. And we track things like utilities, do planning studies and that type of thing with the systems. But it's really endless. It's kind of a model of the real world, I guess.
Well, it's kind of a merging of maps and computers.
Correct. Yeah, there's a database, everything's database driven, and then it takes the traditional cartographic elements, the map elements, and kind of merges that into a more modern digital system so that we can kind of play with the world on a computer, I guess.
So we were talking earlier, and you mentioned that you had graduated with a degree in geography, which is that part of the whole GIS system? Is that where you learn GIS?
Yeah, so geography is kind of, or the GIS is kind of rooted in geography, hence the geographic information systems. It's kind of born out of the original mapping aspect of it. So my background is in geography with an emphasis in geographic information systems and computer science.
And I know people talk about coordinates with GIS. Talk about how that works.
Well, there's several different coordinate systems, and that basically allows us to reference features to a map. Obviously, we can't truly map a 3D surface or a sphere perfectly, so we use coordinate systems to help lay that stuff out within a map so that it best represents the area that we're looking at. In this
so
case,
is it still based on that sort of longitude-latitude system?
Yeah, in large part. It's not always longitude-latitude. It could be, but it's essentially a grid XY type system. Everything has a numeric coordinate, essentially, and that's how we pin things down.
So we still see people, and we at the City of Ames still have people surveying. Is surveying connected with GIS?
We will use survey data in GIS to help us make things more accurate. So from that aspect, yes, but there's also the actual need to take those coordinates or take that place on Earth and put it out, stake it out, so that you can see property boundaries, build a building and that type of thing, and that's where they kind of separate a little bit.
So GIS becomes extremely helpful in doing many, many different city functions. It's sort of a system of layering infrastructure, property lines, different utilities. Talk about some of the ways that we use GIS in the City of Ames.
One of the big ways and most apparent ways is for our utilities. We have thousands of different fire hydrants, manholes, all sorts of different features spread throughout the city, and it's very hard to track in a straight database format. So we use a map-based system where we can see what's nearby, maybe see what's flowing into it, see what's interacting with it, and that allows us to better track that asset. So that's a very simple example of what we use it for.
So GIS helps locate infrastructure, but to actually, but you can't really see it. I mean, you don't see it on your screen. You have to actually go to the site, then you know where you're going.
Correct. I mean, you can see the feature representation within the system, but you don't actually see. It's not a real world, real-time feed to that place on the Earth. However, we do inventory a lot of pictures of different assets. We can connect to different camera feeds and that type of thing to bring in some of that real-time information into the system and then display that back out to our users.
One of the interesting things that I thought that the Public Works Department has done recently was in real time show the hydrant flushing. So as a hydrant got flushed in the spring, we would have a map that turned from red to green, which showed that hydrant was done.
Yes, I think that's something you'll probably see more of. We've deployed right around 30 different mobile devices out in the field with our field crews. And they're essentially doing the same thing that they were doing with maybe a laptop or a piece of paper, tracking what they're doing, maybe taking a condition assessment of that, and then also checking it off when it's flushed. And then we've taken that information full circle and displayed that to the public so that they can see maybe when their street's going to be flushed, when their hydrants have been flushed, and what to expect. So that's something we hope to keep replicating as we go on.
So I know that your group has also worked with the local high school, Ames High, on doing some coding with, is it storm drains or street signs? I can't remember.
We have a program with our one of the science classes at the Ames High, and they do our labeling for our blue water intakes, which are the intakes that run directly to the stream. And we label those so that people don't, are discouraged from dumping anything, maybe pollutant related into those that flows directly into that. And the class at the high school has volunteered to maintain that sticker inventory for us. So we built them a little website and a mobile system that they can go out and track and see which need to be replaced. So that's just a...
So certain storm intakes then are sort of being monitored by the high school class and labeled?
Correct, yeah. They're kind of taking care of that, what we would have to do, going out and placing the stickers on them and making sure they're there when needed, and if we put new ones in, then to place those stickers on those. So
that's a real life example of students interacting with GIS and helping, providing a service.
Sure, yep, definitely.
So GIS in high school, would that be unusual, or is that something that more students are growing up with?
Well, I think it's something that's growing. I don't think it's as prevalent as it should be. Some of the industry itself has pledged a lot of resources. The software companies have pledged a lot of resources that are now available to schools if they'd like to get into that. So it is something that's growing more and more.
Well, obviously people are getting more and more comfortable with GPS. Most people don't take out a road map anymore. They have their Garmin or their TomTom, and they're being told verbally directions. All that is sort of GIS connected?
Yeah, correct. I mean, that's on a basic form. That is a GIS system. We take that maybe to the next level for our detail needs. But yeah, that's a very generic GIS system.
And some people do geocaching, which is also an interesting use of GIS.
Yep, I've never done that myself, but a lot of people do it. It's basically a treasure hunt using GPS, and people leave caches and notes and that type of thing, and then they go around and find them, and there's lots of websites and that content on the web to go and look at those.
So I assume this is a growing field, and it sounds like even more so in the future.
Yeah, I think from an industry standpoint, it's definitely a growing field. It's something you're going to see more and more investment in. And it's not something that's exactly new, but it's now, especially with mobile devices, smartphones, and that type of things, it's something that's in everyone's hand, and they're more familiar with it and have the ability to access it.
And it's a form of technology that cities are utilizing more and more often with interesting results. You recently came back from receiving an award for some of the work that the Public Works Department has done. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, our GIS work group received a recognition for a Special Achievement in GIS Award, which is a national or international award. And we received that for municipalities, basically recognizing our implementation and use of GIS systems, not only in public works but across the city. And it's a growing application, so it's something we're going to keep moving on.
So your team, you have 2 other GIS specialists that work with you. Probably those weren't positions that we had in the city 20 years ago?
No, they actually came out of engineering tech positions. In fact, 7 years ago when I started, there were still engineering technician positions, kind of out of the CAD and drafting world. And as things have progressed and we've used more GIS, we've moved those positions over to GIS specialist positions, so that we were able to hire people with those exact skill sets. Right now we have Dominic Roberge and Lisa Mont, who are our GIS specialists here, and they do fantastic work. They're very busy, and they work with a lot of different departments around the city. So
you see the need for GIS continuing in the future, perhaps growing?
I do. One of the things that I like about it is the ability to take information from across the organization or the enterprise, kind of break down those silos, centralize it into one database, and then be able to easily share that so that other departments can visualize and use that information.
Well, one of the reasons that I like GIS is the ability to target areas for communication. It's very interesting how you can use GIS to pull addresses or see how many property owners are in a specific area. There's so many uses for it.
Yeah, and that's just one example. I mean, that's kind of a good example of how we take that information and connect it with actual points on the earth, so that when you need a search, if you want to do a search within 200 yards of a house and get addresses or that type of thing, you can do that, which was not the case with traditional data sets.
Well, Ben, congratulations on your
Thank
award.
you.
Thank you for coming by and talking with us.
Thank you.
So if you want to see more information about GIS, you can access maps on our website at cityofames.org. There's a drop-down menu under the Living tab that talks about GIS and map access. You can find our shared use path map and other really interesting maps. Other things to think about this summer: the Ames Public Library will close its temporary location on August 17th in preparation to its move to its renewed location on 515 Douglas. Remember, the Book Brigade and all sorts of fun activities will happen during that time period. Look for more information at amespubliclibrary.org. Well, that's our show for today. Thanks for watching, and tune in next week for This Week in Ames.